Anyway, kids,
Hello and welcome to the Shopping App tutorial series. In the previous tutorials, we looked at how to create our login and then registration page for our application. But for this tutorial, we're going to be covering how we can catch the customer details locally. Then when they open the application again, they don't have to log in every time. So the issue now is every time you open the application you have to log in, and that can be a pain. So now if I close the application
12
and open it
o'clock
again,
p.m.
it asks for login. So every time the user opens the app, it will request a login credential. So today we're gonna be covering how we can catch the login details and let the application log in by itself automatically every time you open it. So let's get started. So first thing first, we need to declare some variables in our constants class. So for the cache, we're going to be using share preferences. So if you don't know what share preferences is, you can find out on the Android documentations. Basically, share preferences allows you to locally save data on your device. So that's one way of saving data locally onto your device. You can also use a local database like SQLite. But for these tutorials, we're gonna keep things simple, so we'll be using the share preferences. So the first variable will be the share preferences name. So for that, I'm gonna be using the application ID, the package name for the app. And we need to catch the customer details, so we need a key for each detail. So like the user ID, username, password, we don't need a password, the first name, last name, and so on. So we need to create a key for each value. So this will be for the user ID. Okay, so now we've got all our constant variables, so we need to create another class in our common. Let's call it pref manager. And I'm going to be using an enums like we did for the network helper. We're going to make this a singleton class, that way so the application will only need one instance of it. That way it doesn't create multiple objects every time you call this class. So like before, we need to add this instance keyword to let the class knows we are creating a singleton, and we also need a private constructor. So we also need a public constructor to pass in a context. Okay, it's not allowing a public constructor, so we'll pass the context through the methods instead. So we need a method that we will call when every time we log in to cache the data. So we call it on login. Then we need the customer class, the customer variable, and the context. And for the context, I'm using application instead of activity context, because this is a singleton class. It's gonna be remaining in the until the application itself is closed. So if you're making an activity class, it will cause some it could cause a data leak, a memory leak in the application if the activity is closed, since there's a reference to the activity through the context. It will not close the activity. So to prevent any leak, any performance issues, we use application context instead. So first thing, we need the share preference variable. So here we pass the pref's name. Oh wait, I made them private, they should be public instead. The pref's name, then the mode will be private. So now we put our values in the editor. So the first value is an int, which is the ID. Yeah, the ID is an int, so it will pass an int to for that one. So the key, the editor requires a key, that's why we created these keys. Then the value, so the key will be key ID, key user ID. Then the value will be the customer dot get ID. The next one will be the first name, but instead of ID we put string, and the key will be key first name, then customer dot get first name, and editor dot toString. So that'll be customer dot get last name, get username, get email, then phone number. Then we apply our editor changes, editor dot apply, and that will do it for. Oh yeah, we need to make it return a boolean. So instead of a void, we return a boolean and return true. So that means if it's true, that means the login was success. Then we catch these details. And then another method to check if the user is logged in. So that would be if the user is logged in, then we can get the details. So public boolean is logged in. So for that also we need to get the shape preferences. Okay, so now I'm thinking of a way to provide the context without having to add it every time in each method. Let's try this option. Let's create a context, a private context variable. Then the methods, a public method to set the context. And we pass it here. So now we won't need this context here. We could just call it straight from that one. So every time we initialize, we will first need to call this method before we call the rest. Let me put that at the top. So here we check if we are logged in. So we check if the username is null, then return true. That means the user is logged in. But if it's null, then we'll return a false. That means the login wasn't success. first string, key username, then the default value is null, and we check if it's not equals null. If it's not null, then return true.
You have new mail. You have 6 new messages.
So now we return the shared preferences.get key if it's not null. So if you're not, the username is not null, then we know that we've logged in successful. And if we logged in, we need to get the customer details. So we need another method for that. So we're gonna be needing the shared preferences again. Then return the customer. So we need to return the customer. So here we pass the ID with default value of 0. Then the first name, and also null as the default value. Then the last name, null. And the phone number, the email, and then the username. Yeah, and for the message and error, we pass null or just an empty string, and the error will be false. Yeah, but here I think this has been misplaced. Let's see, after the user, so the ID is after the first name. Oh, wait, I made a stupid mistake. Our customer doesn't have a constructor, so we need to create a constructor to be able to pass these values. Okay, so yeah, that's the order it should be in. Okay, so now that's done. Let me check if this constructor that I just created won't affect my login, or if it won't affect anything. Okay. Okay, so since we are using a constructor, the setters are not needed, but you can leave them if you want, because you are setting the values through the constructor. We don't need the method for setting the values. This way makes the setters redundant, but it doesn't matter either way. Let's continue on. So now that we get the customer, we also need to check if we are logged out. We'll return a boolean instead of a void. And again, we need the shape reference. Then we open the editor. So when we logged out, we want to clear everything in the shape reference. That way, so the reason why we are clearing is, like, if you logged out from the application, it should go back to the login screen and allow you to log in with different details. So if you keep the data still in the shape preferences, as soon as you logged out, it will automatically log in again. So we need to clear the details from the shape preferences, so that way there will be no details, and then you have to insert the details yourself. So we use the editor.clear method to clear it, then we apply and return true. Then yeah, and I think that would be it for the shape preferences. Okay, so now we go to our login activity. So here, where we have the unlogin success, So in the login activity, we need to set the context. So we do prefs manager dot instance dot set context, then we pass this. Get application context. Yeah, we pass get application context, and that will set our context for us. So after we set the then here we check if we are already logged in. So if first let's make the prefs manager a variable. Then we can just use the variable to make things easier. So prefs manager dot, if prefs manager dot is logged in, if you are logged in, then we finish this activity and we start we go straight to the home screen. Yeah, and that's that. Then in the on login success, here we get the customer. So we do prefs manager dot on login, then we pass our customer. So if you log in successfully, just pass these details into our share preferences. So here we call this method and insert these details. Yeah, and that will be it for the login activity. So when we go to the main activity, we also need the share preferences. So to get the customer details, so we'll do another private prefs manager, and here we set the context. Okay. So now we get the customer. So let's put let's put a text view. Let's put a text view in this, so we'll know if we logged in to get the customer details. Oh, come on, seriously. Oh well, if it's not gonna. Oh, my Android Studio is messing up. Let's leave it at that just for testing. So in the menu, I need to give it an ID. That's not working either. It's showing here, but it's not changing in the editor. Yeah. Okay, so then we set the text. We set it to the customer dot get username, just to see if we get the details. So in the main activity, we initialize our share preferences, then we set the context, and we pass the customer to these customer variables from the share preferences. So let's test it. As you can see, it saved the details here. And so now when we close it and open it again, it doesn't ask for login, it just goes straight to the main activity. So let's run it again. See, it goes straight to the main activity with the username. So now the user don't have to log in every time they open the application. So that concludes this part of the tutorials. So basically this is an easier way of caching user details for easy login. Thanks for watching. See you next time.